This is my story. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin for this. I think the best place to start is when I started to become conscious of my decisions. I think the most power we have as adolescents is not having to consciously think about what we're doing. I spent majority of my childhood, probably up until I was 13, no, probably up until I was in high school, freshman, sophomore year, not really thinking about my decisions much. Like, I would search up the how to get abs in 1 week or how to learn a new skill, but consciously setting goals and creating plans to reach that is the most important part, and I didn't realize that. I also didn't realize how much my brain had power over me. Like, our thoughts have so much power over us. And until sophomore year, I never really realized that I could use my thoughts as power. But even then, I was still rather new to it and I didn't really understand. I would still let my thoughts control me. And that's the hardest thing, is to always be conscious of what you're doing and remember not to let those stray thoughts control you. Because the hardest thing is, everybody tells you, oh, just focus on certain thoughts or let those thoughts fly away. It's not that easy. Like, understanding your thoughts is extremely hard. Understanding why you have those thoughts is even harder. But instead of trying to understand why you have the thoughts that you have or wishing that you didn't have those thoughts, just let them go. Focus on the thoughts that you want to have, because those thoughts will always be there if you focus on them. If you're always looking for a way to get rid of thoughts in your head, you're actively thinking about those thoughts. And that is a detriment to your mentality. Freshman year, I had just come back from COVID. 8th grade year, I had failed all of my classes, and they sent me back to school in the second semester because I was doing so bad that if I wouldn't have, they would have kept me back a year in 8th grade. And I missed 3 months of online schooling, which they counted as real school. They said I can either come back to school and I cannot miss any more days, or I can pay a $1,000 fine. But in reality, I didn't understand the value of money, the value of my time, and the value of the schooling, what it would teach me for discipline. That was probably the hardest thing for me to understand. And now, what I've learned to understand is, after going back every Friday for weeks to catch up, I ended up passing with B's, C's. I realized that I can do anything I set my mind to. I set a goal for myself. I decided I wanted to help people. I wanted to become a surgeon. Even though my 8th grade ended roughly and I knew that they started tracking your progress in 7th grade for how well you did in school, I believed no matter how big of a setback I set for myself, I would be able to push past that. And I think that was my first breakthrough at having a better mentality. Not only having a better mentality, but also just trying to be a better person in general. But I didn't realize that external factors were going to play such an important role in the rest of my high school career. Sophomore year, I decided to push myself out of my comfort zone. I started exercising regularly. I started losing weight, but it was in a really unhealthy way. I was in a really bad calorie deficit, eating McDonald's whenever I wanted, eating junk food, not sleeping at night, working out excessively, until I ended up losing about 50-60 pounds, changing the way I looked. But it wasn't in a healthy way. It was more of like a skinny fat type look instead of just a chubby type look, which is better, but it wasn't healthy. And until I realized that there was a healthy way to go about living my life and still enjoy it, I think I just focused on the goals that I had. I didn't have any real plan. I just had goals and things that I wanted to achieve. But I had no real way of getting to those. So in reality, it was just a dream that would never be turned into a reality. And that's something that scares a lot of us. That we can have these dreams, but they'll always just be dreams unless we're actively doing something to move towards it. I didn't realize that. But sophomore year, I met a girl and I fell in love. And I devoted myself to the stress, the over obsession, the feelings in that relationship. I devoted myself. But then somewhere along the way I started to doubt those feelings. And I started to feel like if we weren't growing together in the direction that I wanted, then what was the point? We would just grow apart. And for a long time I regretted that because it weighed on my head heavily and it caused a lot of stress and a lot of pain in the relationship. I ended up hurting her even though I loved her more than anything. I had believed that she was the love of my life. I was ready to give up all of my dreams for her, but in reality, that's not the healthy way to live. I shouldn't have been trying to give up my dreams for someone else. I should have been trying to fit them into my dreams. I was actively destroying my future for something that I wasn't happy with. But even then, when I tried to end my happiness, or my false happiness, I wasn't able to do it. I wasn't strong enough. And that ended up just causing more hurt in the relationship. And then when things finally did end because of her and her decision, I came back weeks later, even though we were friends. We tried to end things on good terms, but let's be honest, when it comes to relationships where you love so strongly, that deep bond is not something that you can just get rid of. It's not something I could show up to school every single day, see her again after a year and a half of dating. That love was too strong for it to just be dwindled to a friendship. And that was the hardest thing for me, because seeing her being okay with growing without me when it was so much of a stress for me to have to grow without her, it hurt. But the truth is that was probably the most needed thing for both of us, because it would have just caused more pain and regret if it would have went on for any longer. So instead of being able to just leave us as just friends, I went back and I confessed my love, and I got rejected. And I realized at that moment that it was okay that I got rejected, because that was for the best. It showed growth mentally, and it showed that I had a lot of growing to do emotionally. And that's okay, because as humans we make mistakes. It took me a long time to realize that, but I put a lot of the blame for all of the hate, the hurt, the stress, the hate in the relationship on me, because I felt like I was the one actively ruining everything in my head. And that's what made the relationship bad. But in reality, it was because I had such a toxic mentality that I couldn't be there for myself, much less for her. And the fact that we just weren't compatible for each other was something I couldn't deal with. But now that I've spent time alone, I've spent time hurting, I've spent time healing, I've learned the control that my mind can have on myself. And I can either continue hurting or I can learn to love.
Hello, please leave a message after the tone.
The saddest thing is, learning to love, it'll never work if you don't learn to love yourself. I spent a lot of time regret, hatred, jealousy, thinking about all of the external factors in my life, but in reality, I just needed to focus on the internal factors. I had to forgive those that caused me hurt, forgive my family for any mistakes that had happened, any hardships in my life. I had to forgive myself most of all. Because if I couldn't forgive myself for all of the hateful things I've said and thought about myself, then I would never be able to grow to love myself. And I think growing to love yourself is the most important part of life. Because if you can't grow to love yourself, then what's the point? So that's why I had to ask myself the question, who are you? And not some bullshit like, I play volleyball, I exercise, like just listing off stuff about my family and the stuff I've done in my life. When you think about who you are, you need to look deep within, because none of us really are willing to go that deep. None of us are able to make ourselves vulnerable, show ourselves that side of ourselves, and discover what truly interests us or what we truly want, because we feel like the external factors, the people that are cheering us on, will stop cheering us on. But when it comes down to it, when I needed people the most, when I needed people to cheer me on, when I needed them to support me, they weren't there for me. I honestly thank them for not being there for me though, because them not being there for me in the time that I needed it the most, it was able to show me that I could be there for me in the time that I needed it the most. And that's the most powerful thing you can learn about your mind. I think that's the turning point for a lot of people in how you can grow not only mentally, but as a physical being as well. Because being able to be there for yourself is extremely hard. A lot of us will just push ourselves down. But learning to love yourself is the most important part of accepting yourself. My senior year, after the relationship ended, I stopped showing up at school for weeks because I couldn't stand to see her. I knew that if I saw her, I would feel all the feelings. And it wasn't her fault. I couldn't do it. And the fact that I couldn't do it showed how much growing I needed to do for myself, because I couldn't love, I couldn't hurt, and I couldn't feel freely. So instead I shut myself away. I almost failed out, not even graduating. And I forgot about my dreams, my goals. I forgot about wanting to help people, wanting to become a surgeon. I just let myself fall away into, I can just do nothing. Because in reality, I could. If I wanted to, I could just do nothing, be nothing, live my life with my head down, and that's it. And you know what? If that's what people want to do, they want to live their lives content with where they are in life, with their head down, working day to day, then that's okay. But it's not something I truly wanted. It's something that ate away at me at night. Every night I would stay up late and think about how shit I was, how bad I was doing for myself. And I needed to stop thinking like that. I need to stop thinking like I was treating myself bad, I looked bad. I needed to stop thinking those things. It's still hard to not think those things. Like looking in the mirror, seeing my acne, seeing the imperfections on my body, seeing the fat left over from when I used to overeat, it eats away at me. But being able to consciously realize that those are the things that you're thinking about, and changing that in your head, if you can tell yourself that it's okay, it's me right now, but as long as I focus on the things that interest me, I'll get to a point where I love myself. Because you can tell yourself thousands of times that you love yourself, but you have to start to actively believe it. And the first step to actively believing that you love yourself is to tell it to yourself. The more you tell yourself something, the more likely you are to believe it. Because after you hear it 1,000 times, it becomes a little bit more believable. Especially if you tell it to yourself over and over and over. That's where the mind becomes the most powerful. When you can actively change your thoughts, you can actively change your decisions, and you can change boredom into interest, patience into enjoyment. When you can start enjoying the process instead of just fantasizing about the goals, that's when you can truly get somewhere in life. Because without the process, goals will never be met. If you can't learn to enjoy the journey, it'll be a lot more painful than the person that can enjoy the journey. Because the person that can enjoy the journey, they're always going to go farther than the goals they set, since they just enjoy becoming better. And when you can tell your mind that it's better to just enjoy becoming better, it's better to enjoy growing, then you can push through those hardships and you can feel the joy of how it feels to have pushed through those hardships. There's no amount of dopamine, there's no amount of drugs, there's no amount of external validation that will ever feel as good as when you make yourself happy, when you feel content with what you've done, when you learn a new skill that you didn't think you could ever learn. When you can reframe your mindset to that, you can become powerful. I know I'm trying, but you can't just become perfect. You can't just completely change your mindset. It's gotta be a one day at a time type thing. It's not gonna feel okay. It's not gonna feel right changing yourself. It should never feel right changing yourself. You're getting out of your comfort zone. If you get out of your comfort zone and you don't feel uncomfortable, then you're not doing it right. You have to change yourself in some way to show that you're not only human and make mistakes, but you can grow from those mistakes. And if you're not willing to make mistakes, then you'll never be willing to grow. So, I guess from this first video that I've posted in a long time, what I want to take away from this talk is embrace the growth. Embrace failure. Embrace all of it. Embrace the whole process of life. Because life is a process. All the joy, all the hate, all the sadness, all of everything, all of the depression, all of it is working towards your future. And if you can take that and be grateful for it, then you can actively enjoy your life in the moment. If you can't actively enjoy your life in the moment, then you'll never enjoy your life in the future. Stop pursuing happiness and just be happy. If you can't do, then tell yourself that you can do until you believe it. That's all. Thanks for watching, and I guess we'll see you next time.